Good evening, everyone. Welcome tonight. We'll start the meeting off at 5:01 p.m. I'd like to humbly acknowledge the land we live, work, learn, work, and play is Treaty 8 territory, traditional lands of Cree and Dene, and unceded territory of the Métis people. For the record, we have Councillor Brandt joining us online. And Councillor, you have your camera turned on for voting purposes, please. Thank you, sir. And anyone intends to wish to address council on any of the agenda items, please register with Legislative Services Desk to my right prior to the start of that agenda item starting. And when you do speak, you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Stay on topic, and please remain seated for questions. Before I adopt the agenda, I'd like to go to Councillor Scott. He has a notice of motion he'd like to serve. There you go. If you want. Go ahead.
Thanks for that, Mayor. And it's a notice of motion regarding snow removal review and service transparency. I, Councillor Don Scott, serve notice of my intent to bring forward the following motion for Council's consideration at the February 10th, 2026 Council meeting. The Council directs administration to conduct a review of the current snow removal policies and operational practices within the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo as soon as practicable, and in any event within 30 days, and that the review includes an assessment of options to enhance snow removal efficiency and responsiveness, particularly in relation to extreme or rapidly fluctuating weather conditions, and the administration report back to the council with recommended changes, including associated budget implications, to improve overall snow removal service levels. And that administration investigates the feasibility of implementing GPS tracking of snow clearing equipment, including a public-facing platform that would allow residents to view real-time snow clearing activity and equipment locations such as that in Edmonton. And with that, that's my notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Can I have someone make the motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Weigel.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the agenda be adopted as presented.
And thanks for the second, Councillor Boussier. So I'll call for a vote. In favor online? Thanks, Councillor Brent. In favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove any items off the consent agenda? Hearing none, can I have someone make that motion? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that the recommendations contained in item 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4 be approved.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. Thanks for the second, Councillor Van Castian. I'll call for a vote. In favor online? Thanks, Councillor Brandt. In favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. This evening, first, I'd like to address a proclamation we're having tonight's meeting recognizing Black History Month, and the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the region is socially, culturally, and ethnically diverse, comprising of many peoples and communities. And whereas, across generations and over centuries, Black Canadians have demonstrated courage and resilience and are contributors to all sectors of society. And whereas, Black History Month is an opportunity to raise awareness of the historic and ongoing commitment to justice and initiatives that advance equal opportunity and fair treatment. And whereas, Black History Month is a time to recognize the leadership of Black Canadians in standing up against racism, discrimination, and prejudice. And whereas Black Canadians organizations in the region invite all residents to join them in celebrating Black History Month and to learn more about experiences and achievements of Black Canadians. Therefore, I, Sandy Bowman, Mayor of the Regional Municipality of Buffalo, hereby proclaim February 2026 as Black History Month. Thank you, everyone. Now, moving on to presentations, we have capital budget. Capital projects prioritization. Thanks. I'd like to invite Project Delivery and Facility Services to present, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Elliot White, and I'm here representing administration to discuss capital project prioritization exercise that was completed. On December 9th, 2025, administration was directed to conduct a prioritization exercise of our capital projects. The goal was to identify any issues that hindered administration's ability to progress projects. In response to this motion, administration undertook a comprehensive capital project prioritization exercise. To guide us through this process, the status of all approved capital projects was reviewed. To streamline the process, any projects that were in flight or were well underway were exempt from this review. The remaining projects that required strategic considerations were identified. Of the projects reviewed, they were grouped into 3 categories. Projects proposed for cancellation, projects proposed for to be defunded, and projects that required council awareness due to an adjusted approach that was established during this exercise. Because the impacts of administration recommendation on the 2026 capital budget, administration will provide council with our findings and recommendation during budget deliberations. Thank you for allowing us to make a concert effort to focus our attention on the delivery of the projects that remain and a priority for the municipality. Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot. Appreciate the report and the work that's gone into it, and we look forward to that coming up in the 26 budget. And let's quick thank you to Councillor Scott for bringing this motion forward. Questions, Councillor Scott?
Yeah, and thanks again for all your hard work on this. I know it's no easy task, just given the volume of projects that have been on the books. Given where you're at today, would you say that there is a significant cost savings before us if your recommendations are accepted? And recognizing that not all your recommendations are before council tonight, but given what you've seen to date and the recommendations you anticipate that you could bring forward?
Through the chair of the question, I believe that once presented and if the recommendations are accepted, I believe there is some cost savings, and we'll see those during the budget. Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Scott. Councillor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Elliot, and thanks for you and your team for going through this. Can you explain just the difference between cancellation and defunded, please?
So, to the chair of the question, the cancellation is removing a project from the book, so it no longer is no longer identified as an initiative that we would undertake. The difference with the defunded is where the initiative may be of interest to the municipality. We would basically remove all funding associated with that project. And then what we would do is that project still remains sort of on the books, but doesn't have money associated to that project. What that allows us to do is that sometime in the future, if council chooses to do so, they may bring forward a motion to bring forward that project again. What it allows us to do also is to ensure that we don't tax our residents twice. So that money is set aside in the reserve, and then if that project's brought forward, then we can reuse that funding. Now, we also have Ms. Orser here to also offer some financial conversations around the defunding, because I'm sure she can do a better job than I can.
Awesome. No, I think you did a great job. I appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure. I know before we did our presentation, I wasn't sure quite the difference. Mm-hmm. With a defunded project, that money would then go back and maybe we can speak to it, that it would go into a capital reserve and get invested until further needed, would be my understanding, right? Is that correct?
Through the chair to the question, yes, that's correct.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Weigel. Does any other council have any other questions? I'm not seeing you. Thanks, Elliot. Next, we have the report on the Fort Chipewyan Spray Park feasibility study. I'd like to invite Director White to remain seated. And whenever you're ready, Director White.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Elliot White, and I'm here representing administration to discuss the feasibility study in the community of Fort Chipewyan associated with the spray park. On April 8th, 2025, a motion was passed that directed administration to explore and bring forward options for potential development of a spray park in Fort Chipewyan. It was requested that options are provided with consideration for the 2026 budget. Since that motion was passed in April of last year, 2 additional motions were passed. One directed administration to demolish the old childcare facility that is located close to Mamoe Community Hall. The other directed administration to complete a feasibility study that explores the potential of expanding the Mamoe Community Hall. A feasibility study for the spray park was completed in 2025. During this same time, additional community needs were identified, including this potential of the community hall. With all 3 motions before us, this has created an opportunity for administration to broaden our analysis. This allows for a more holistic review of the community recreational facilities in Fort Chipewyan, ensuring that future investments are aligned with the overall needs and priorities of the residents. Therefore, administration recommends that the synergies between the potential of the spray park and Mamoe Hall expansion initiative be thoroughly explored, and that a consolidated update be provided to Council in Q4 2026. This supports municipalities' commitment to responsible government, effective service delivery, sound financial stewardship, and building relationships with the rural and Indigenous communities. So in short, there's a lot happening in one small area within the community of Fort Chipewyan, and we want to make sure that we explore all options and present all of them to you for sound decisions. So we're requesting more time to review that. When it comes to the Mamoe Hall, we're in the process of doing the feasibility study. We conducted a community engagement just prior to Christmas, and so we will have that report sort of ready, and then we'll dovetail in the conversation with the spray park. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Does council have any questions? Councillor Cardinal?
Thanks, Mayor. To the Mayor, to Mr. Elliott, thanks for the presentation. Talk about, let's say, maybe my first question would be numbers for a spray park in Fort Chipewyan that would be similar to something that's here in Fort McMurray. Do you have any numbers on maybe the cost of that?
So this is a very interesting question because I spent a lot of time thinking about the costs of things in Fort Chipewyan with respect to capital projects, and even when we talk about cost estimations later tonight. We have to understand that the cost of doing business, whether it's doing capital projects, living in Fort Chipewyan, is simply different than here. Typically, what we've seen in the past in Fort McMurray is a typical outdoor spray park would have a cost of about $1 million, and that's simply the footprint of the spray park. Doesn't include any of the infrastructure that's necessary to sort of provide water, for example, or provide a sanitary system to go along with it. What we have seen is that there's 2 types of spray parks available to us. The option that we are looking at with Fort Chipewyan, given the infrastructure that is available, is a recirculation spray park. So basically, you're always circulating the water. It comes at a higher cost, but because you're on a sewage lagoon, that's something that we need to look at. So right now, we're looking at approximately $6 million for a spray park in Fort Chipewyan, understanding that there is a location factor associated with anything in Fort Chipewyan. It's not a one-to-one comparison to compare a project here versus a project in Fort Chip.
So I guess my next question would be, so out of the 3 requests, 3 motions that I brought forward, you're looking to see which one's going to be built first, basically? do you think?
No, not at all. We're looking at the idea that we have an initiative looking at the Momaway Hall. So Momaway Hall is, as you know, is located next to other recreational facilities, and there might be synergies associated with placing the spray park in and around that area. And so when you have the ability to look at doing multiple things at one time, you can find synergies and look at reducing costs. So that's what we want to kind of look at, among other things.
With the community hall, do you believe that, maybe that could be used for something else if we're not going to expand it? Like, are we looking at maybe building a different one?
No option is off the table when we look at feasibility studies. We try to look at all options, from do nothing option to expansions, to how big that expansion is, to the potential for other facilities. But it will present those to you as mayor and council, and it's up to mayor and council then to decide which direction we want to take. I don't want to necessarily put blinders on and limit ourselves to what our options are and only focus on one option. I want to keep it open.
No, I like that narrative. I guess my next question would be, just for the record, the daycare site that's going to be demolished, the RMWB owns that?
So this is a great question. So I want to clarify one thing. So there is a motion forward in front of us that talks about demolishing the childcare facility. We're also exploring other options of potentially reusing it within the community. So we're not necessarily 100% on demolishing it just yet. We'll bring that back to council when we walk through that whole conversation. When it comes to the ownership of that facility, we are the owners of that facility. Correct.
Does that hinder our ability to move forward with the feasibility study on the expansion of the community hall?
Through the chair to the question, are you suggesting that would hinder us?
Yeah.
Through the chair to the question, no, it wouldn't hinder us. It's a I call them Mako trailers. They're trailers that can be moved rather quickly or demolished rather quickly. It's not going to hinder us at all.
Okay. One last question maybe is, geez, what was it now? That slipped my mind. No, that's all I got. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Allen?
Thank you. And just for my own benefit, because I'm not familiar with the childcare building but I think you just answered it. It's a series of ATCO trailer type structures.
Through the chair to the question, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and they're not like beyond repair or like, I guess, why was the need to demolish them coming forward? Was that specifically to make room for a spray park or a water feature like that? Or was it, I mean, they're not condemned or anything like that?
Okay, through the chair to the question, there was a motion put forward through previous council to demolish them. We understand, I'm maybe going to paraphrase a couple things that happened at that council. So there was a conversation around potentially some mold issues and things of that nature. We, as an organization, reviewed that concern. We identified that wasn't a concern. So then we started looking at other options rather than just simply demolish and remove. So we're now exploring other options with our community partners within Fort Chippewa to see if there is an ability to reuse them. We as a municipality don't have use for them in particular, whether in Fort Chippewa or here in Fort McMurray or otherwise.
Yeah, so we have another child care center somewhere else, I guess. Maybe that should be directed to Councillor Cardinal, but so do we still have a need for a child care space as well?
Through the chair to the question, this is part of the exploratory nature of this whole feasibility. As I understand it, and Councillor Cardinal may interject here, is I understand that the child care operations is now using some of the Momaway Hall, and so that's why they vacated that building.
Right. Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. Councillor Cardinal?
Well, I remembered the question again. Thanks, Elliot. I was wondering a timeline. Do we have a timeline in specific to having a budget implication for the projects?
Through the chair, that would be Q4 2026. So we'd like to bring something back at the end of this year, particularly in hopes of having that conversation before capital budget. So any sort of planning can occur if necessary.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Does any other council have any other questions? I'm not seeing any. Thanks, Elliot. And I just want to thank Councillor Cardinal for bringing these motions forward. And I look forward to the recommendations coming back kind of based on what's practical and what the community needs. So thanks, Elliot. And thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Do we have any delegates to this item?
We have no registered delegates for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have someone make the motion? Do you want to do it?
Where is it? Here it is. Yeah. Thanks. Good. Thanks, Mayor. I move that the feasibility study related to a spray park in Fort Chipewyan be accepted for information, and that resolution number 25010 dated April 8, 2025 be closed, and that administration be directed to analyze the Fort Chipewyan spray park feasibility study and return to council in Q4 2026 with the findings from the Momway Hall feasibility study with a synopsis of potential synergies between the two independent studies.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. And thanks for the second, Councillor Boussier. Does Council have any more debate, discussion, or comments? Councillor Vardy?
Thank you. Just want to thank administration for consolidating some of these. I think that when we have work in urban and also in rural, if we can consolidate some of these and see where there's efficiencies, that's something that we should be looking at moving forward. So thank you, and great job, Councillor Cardinal.
Absolutely agree, Councillor Vardy, and I think that's a good example of using engagements for a few different things instead of narrowing it down to one. Any other comments, debate points from council? Questions? I don't see any, so I'll call for a vote. Councillor Brandt online. In favor, thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Next, moving on to the report of the Fort Chipewyan Historical Society grant decommitment. I'd like to invite Community Services to introduce the report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Janelle Fleury, Manager of Community Partnerships and Initiatives in the Community Services Department. I am presenting the request to decommit the Fort Chipewyan Historical Society grant funding. The Fort Chipewyan Historical Society was a nonprofit organization that owned and operated the Fort Chipewyan Bicentennial Museum, funded through the Community Investment Program from 2015 to 2023. In 2022, the RMWB funded the organization for $145,555. During the grant year, the organization became ineligible, having only received $72,778, or 50% of their 2022 grant, as their 2021 financial statements became overdue. In 2023, Council approved the organization's request for $201,800. The 2023 funds were never released as the organization did not provide the required review engagement financial statements for 2021 or 2022. They remained ineligible and were not funded in subsequent grant years. Per our grant processes, when funds are committed but not drawn down, they remain in the carry forward reserve until the activity is eligible to receive the funds or until Council decommits the funding. On June 2nd, 2025, the Fort Chipewyan Historical Society became struck, meaning their corporate registry status as an active nonprofit has been revoked. Since that time, administration met with the Government of Alberta's Historical Resources Management Branch to address community concerns about preservation of the site in the absence of an active board and museum operator. The Government of Alberta held a land lease with the Fort Chipewyan Historical Society, which had become void upon the organization being struck. The Government of Alberta offered a temporary right of entry agreement for the Bicentennial Museum to the RMWB, assigning us responsibility to access the museum site for assessment and preservation activities only. The recommendations this evening are to decommit $274,578 allocated for the Fort Chipewyan Historical Society and to reallocate those funds to the Community Services operating budget to cover costs associated with the right of entry, which supports the preservation of critical artifacts. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council? Councillor Cardinal?
Thanks, Janelle, through the chair, sorry. I'm curious as to how we can find a path forward with the funds that are decommitted, in specific to restoring, maybe that's not the word, protecting or preserving some of the artifacts that are, not contained. Maybe that'd be my question. Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, some of the funds that are being decommitted and redirected to community services budget will be used to conduct a baseline assessment of the condition of the artifacts and the collections or the archives right now, and that will allow us to identify next steps in protecting them. Another critical action that was taken when we signed on to the right of entry was to restore utilities to the site. So in having proper heating, ensuring that things aren't degrading further than they have already.
How often is people checking on the facility?
Regularly.
Yeah.
The rural operations team is a partner to us in this endeavor.
Thank you. That's all I got. I'll let Councillor Luana go.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Luana? Oh,
Yep, thank you, Mayor Bowman. Through the chair to Janelle, just a couple of questions. Did the Fort Chipewyan Historical Society hold charitable status or just nonprofit?
Through the chair to Councillor Bousier's, I am unaware if they had charitable status. I know that they had nonprofit status.
Okay, can we find out, just because it changes the path forward, right, if they hold charitable status?
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if this is a fair question, Janelle, or not, but where are we at with developing an overall historical plan for the region?
Right now, we've finalized scopes of work to engage consultants. What we're looking for first and foremost is those baseline assessments of the collections. Once we have those, or in the meantime, while those are being conducted, we want to work with communities in establishing how they want their history displayed, how should a heritage board be governed in the region. So we are at the beginning stages, especially with the artifacts in Fort Chipewyan. We have a responsibility to do this the right way, so we're trying to be very intentional. We are going to Fort Chipewyan in early February to have discussions with some of the groups we've talked to already in Fort McMurray, trying to understand, in the Heritage Resource Master Plan, there was a suggestion of a regional board, but it was cited as a risk in that how a regional board would govern rural communities and Indigenous heritage has to be done very well. So we're approaching every angle and taking our time because we want to get it right.
Is it on the table to look at this being a municipally operated endeavor?
I think all options are on the table. It is best practice for it to be community or nonprofit, but it's not uncommon now for municipalities to operate museums that we've seen in other communities in Alberta where they've unfortunately been unsuccessful under nonprofit, and municipalities are taking that on now.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm obviously a big proponent of the nonprofit sector, but I guess that didn't work. And with the staff member that was seconded and the work that was done, I think the municipality has done an exceptional job, at least for the urban heritage park. So I commend Tara for all of the work that she did. And I just, despite my strength in the nonprofit, I really don't think municipally operated should be off the table. And then my last question is there money in the existing budget to do it, or is that coming forward next week or 2 weeks from now, whatever it is, budget?
There's not, there's no money in the existing budget, so this will be used towards those first steps of working with a consultant. After we have that preliminary assessment, then we'll come forward with a request or with an update on the next steps and what the budgetary items may be.
But is it in the existing budget that's coming forward, or is there going to be coming forward for emerging reserves?
It's not in the budget for 2026. It will be an emerging issue.
Could we put some in for?
We, at this time, don't have an informed guess of how much it will cost. We really need that assessment first.
All right, thanks to know.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Roussier. Councillor Roussier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, through the chair to Janelle. Janelle, the artifacts in the museum, are they all owned by the museum or?
Through the chair to Councillor Bousier's, everything in the collection at Fort Chipewyan, to our knowledge, belongs to the society. One of our actions when we go in early February is to get the ledger. The society was not an active museum since 2017, so we don't know what's been accessioned or deaccessioned since. And if items have been on loan and not committed to the collection, we need to find out.
Okay, I thought, just having been up there a couple of times, that some of the artifacts were on loan, so I didn't know what would happen or what's happened since the museum closed its doors, if some of the artifacts were taken back by the owners. But if you say they're all owned, I guess it's my belief, but it's what we need to look into. And we're only a temporary steward of the museum. So we have to work with the Alberta Museums Association through our agreement with the province. And we are not in a position to give items back to anyone that did have them on loan, if that's the case. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Roussier. Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Worship. And Councillor Luanaby just actually touched on what question I have, but it was more about, I know we don't have an actual budget in 2026 related to operating costs for the museum and how we're going to evaluate caretaking of that. But I'm hesitant to redirect money into a fund that doesn't have a budget associated with it. So I guess perhaps my question to both finance and the rest of my colleagues is, would it not be more appropriate to decommission the funds and then put them into emerging issues? And then once we have established what we're going to do with this Fort Chipewyan Bicentennial Museum, then we would fund that from emerging issues?
Through the chair to Councillor Allen, we do have an intended use for these funds today. They'll be used to allow us moving forward with the consultants to do the baseline assessments. If those funds are decommitted today and returned to the Emerging Issues Reserve, we won't have funds to move forward on those requests for proposal until a time that the funds become available. So that would delay our work in assessing the condition of the collection.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. Councillor Cardinal?
Thanks, Mayor. I guess maybe just educate me a little bit on what the consultants are going to do.
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, it's not my expertise, but they will go in and conduct an assessment of the condition of the collection and the archives. So that will give us a prioritization of what is at risk of immediate loss or what needs to be mitigated through, as you mentioned, maybe temperate controlled storage. And having that prioritization then will allow us to understand what is our next step, what are our first priorities in managing the collection. We'll also look at the ledger, as I mentioned, with Alberta Museum Association, and that will ensure that everything that was accessioned into the collection is still there. Anything that needs to be deaccessioned, the priority of that being done. And if there's things in the collection that haven't yet been accessioned, then that would be a priority as well.
Thanks. After the decommission, or after we did not fund them the second time around, I guess I'm just out of curiosity, how do you know if Heritage Canada was helping fund them, or was it just donations, or do you have any idea?
To the best of my knowledge, they were self-sustaining on donations, and any revenues from the gift shop or entry. They haven't been funded by the Government of Canada or the province for some time.
Okay, thanks. Has it been open since? It hasn't been open for quite some time now?
To the best of my knowledge, it closed in 2025. The community began to show concern. We reached out to the province in June 2025 and began discussions. So later in the year, we had become aware that utilities were shut off. That's when it became very high priority.
Okay. As for the ledgers, I do know that a lot of them are on loan from the community, so I guess that consultants and stuff would be. Do you have a price on what the consultants are going to be for as a budget implication for us?
We have a ballpark. We don't typically state, I guess, what we think the price will be because we want it to remain competitive.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Bussier.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Through the chair to Janelle, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand, is this right of entry agreement different than like with Heritage Park just because of who owns the land? Like the government of Alberta owns the land in Fort Chip and the municipality did here? That's the difference?
Through the chair to Councillor Bussiers, that's correct. With the Fort McMurray Heritage Society, we owned the land, and their articles of association, their bylaws stated that if they were to dissolve, the municipality would take those assets. The Bicentennial Museum or the Fort Chipewyan Historical Society is on provincial land. They had a land lease with the province, and that became void when the association was struck. And it's further complicated that the bylaws didn't state who would take ownership of the collection in the event that they dissolve or were no longer operating. The province right now is looking into like legal ownership of the collection. That's why we're only named as a steward for the time being. It does become really complicated.
Like, is there a risk that the province could say, no, we're keeping all the artifacts?
I don't believe that's a high risk.
Okay.
They're very interested in the historic branch to ensure that it belongs to the community.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Bussier. Councillor Cardinal.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess one of my questions, another question would be, what's the barrier in having a municipal staff man the facility since we own it, and find a path forward for visitors that come for the winter carnival or come on a winter road that want to see the history of Fort Chipewyan? And I did make that clear that I felt that with all the resources this organization has, to have one employee go and sit and man the spot, I think that would be kind of important to the whole region. What's the path forward there?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, I understand the importance of this site for the community and for visitors. It definitely attracted people from all over. Through our right of entry agreement, unfortunately, we're not assigned responsibility to operate it as a museum. We're assigned responsibility to care for the collection, keep it preserved until a time that we have a path forward. So our discussions that we've had and are continuing to have with community will resolve around what is the next best step. To Councillor Bussier's point, is it that the municipality play a continued role? Is it displaying the heritage differently in Fort Chipewyan? We have a lot of work to do in that regard. So having the museum open right now would have a lot of barriers. For example, the resources would be taken away then from preserving the collection. And there's questions of entry, who has the right to grant entry. Right now under this agreement, we don't, unfortunately.
Can we advocate to get it changed, the agreement?
We're continuing to have conversations with the province. right now their efforts are on understanding the ownership of the collection long-term. But they have suggested that another agreement will be coming. It's just this one is temporary. They also want to understand that this is something that the community is supportive of in the interim, that the municipality is the steward.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Councilor Cardinal. Does council have any other questions? I'm not saying, but thanks, Janelle, for all you guys are doing. And I also want to thank the community of Fort Chipewyan for letting us know as soon as the power was out there so we could, and thank administration for acting so quickly to get the power restored. It's Fort Chipewyan, the oldest community in Alberta, so I think it's important we make sure we protect those historical documents, artifacts, and then we make it accessible to the public as soon as we can. So thanks for all your work. Do we have any delegates to this item?
There are no delegates for this item. Thank you.
Thanks. Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that $274,578 be decommitted from the Community Investment Program for the Fort Chipewyan Historical Society 2022 and 2023 sustaining grants, and that these funds be redirected to the RMWB Community Services 2026 operating budget for costs associated with caretaking the Fort Chipewyan Bicentennial Museum.
Thanks, Councillor Weigel, and thanks, Councillor Boussier, for the second. Does council have any other questions, comments, or debate points? I'm Councillor Cardinal.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge that when I first recognized that, some enhancements need to be done to our heritage in this region, and especially in my home community of Fort Chipewyan, and the importance of protecting and preserving our culture and our Indigenous heritage, and a lot of artifacts in that museum. And not only that, just in general, and having the whole region, and I guess primarily the whole world, come and see the beautiful culture of Fort Chipewyan. And I did want to say that I'm glad that we found a path forward, and I do appreciate everybody involved and all the hard work from administration. And I really think it's important that we start to analyze and create a path forward for our heritage in this community and our whole entire region. And I'm pretty confident that we have the ability this time around, and I look forward to seeing it come to fruition, and having all the communities involved, especially the Indigenous people that those artifacts are part of, and the rich history we have in our region and in Fort Chipewyan. So thank you very much for all the hard work put into it, and I will support the motion. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. The other council have any other debate points, comments before we vote? Not seeing it, so I'll call for a vote. Councillor Brandt online. Thanks, Councillor Brandt. In favor? Thanks. That's carried unanimously, everyone. Thank you very much. Next up, we have bylaw number 26/003, amendment to NRESP tax incentive bylaw number 24/009, which is being presented for the second and third reading. I'd like to invite Matthew Harris, Chief of Staff, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and good evening, members of council. For the record, my name is Matthew Harrison, and I'm the Chief of Staff. I'm joined by Dennis Vroom, who you will recognize as our administrative lead with industry relations. We are here today for what I would characterize as a housekeeping matter regarding the Natural Resource Extraction Support Project Tax Initiative, or the NRESP Tax Initiative, as Mayor Bowman pointed out. This bylaw was originally approved by council on May 28th, 2024, and had a deadline for applications of December 31st, 2025. The intent of the second and third reading of this bylaw this evening is to extend the application deadline until December 31st, 2030. Outside of the date extension, there are no other changes to the bylaw at this time. While small in number, we still continue to receive inquiries on the incentive and believe that it still offers value. And for background, this bylaw is focused on the natural resources extraction support industry and applies to new construction or expansion projects that add to an existing facility's physical space. The minimum amount of eligible capital costs is $25 million and over, and it must involve 250 employees during construction or 15 skilled workers in operation. Essentially, it offers up to an 80% tax exemption until the maximum benefit is reached. This bylaw supports business development and helps maintain a pro-business environment. And so administration recommends passing the second and third bylaw readings to extend the application deadline to December 31st, 2030. That concludes the presentation, and we are happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Matthew. Can you tell me how many businesses have actually taken advantage of this so far and come to the community?
So the most prominent one would be Wolf Midstream, which I believe that took place last year in 2025, or throughout 2024 and into 2025. And then we've had 2 or 3 other inquiries of people submitting applications and us reviewing and working with them. So as I noted, it's a small in number, but it's still an incentive and still something that does offer value, we believe.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matthew. Councillor Scott.
Oh, there we go. I just wanted to look at or mention 3D. So under this bylaw, it must be a natural resources extraction support project. Are we looking at anything, or have we considered amending that section so that a data center, for example, could be included, or any other large-scale project that might be considering the region?
Through the chair to Councillor Scott, that's an excellent question. I'll maybe turn it over to Dennis after just first taking a quick stab at it. I know that we've done some work and some look at some other incentives that we could offer that would expand the opportunity for other sectors and for other types of businesses. And don't know if you want to comment, Dennis, or come on.
Thank you, Matthew. Yes. The Wood Buffalo Pro Business Advisory Committee and other council committees as well have also been having conversations around different business incentives to expand, incentives that this organization could offer to different businesses in the region. So yes, work is underway.
And I'll just also turn the floor over to Kavan, our assessor.
For the record, my name is Kayvan Navidi, Municipal Assessor. To Chair to Councillor Scott, the recent change in the Municipal Act exempts the machinery equipments for data centers. Therefore, they are not taxable anymore. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Scott. Council, have any other questions? Councillor Cardinal.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, guys. With this project, I guess I was just curious how the Indigenous procurement policy is going to have any play in any of this. Do we speak with Indigenous communities as well, or Indigenous-owned businesses?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, certainly if the Indigenous business met the requirements of the bylaw, they would be eligible. But I would say this is more specific to incentives for business development, not necessarily through the procurement strategy. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Roussier.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through the chair to Matthew. A couple years ago, there was a company, I forget, Green Fire Resources. Would they be, I don't even know what went on there. I think we forgave some taxes and they were purchasing an existing or project, would they be eligible, or are they even up and running, or can you speak to that?
To Chair to Councillor Bussier, yes, Green Fire was taking over Everest, but that was an existing project. So this bylaw is to promote the new developments, new businesses in municipality. Therefore, they can still apply, but most likely they just take over an existing business.
Okay, are they up and running, or do we know, or can
They
you?
are up and running and they have been paying their taxes since then.
So
It was a successful transition.
Okay, so they could apply for this, or they could not?
They are, because this is exclude designated industrial properties, they wouldn't be qualified as oil and gas company.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Bussier. Does Council have any other questions? I'm not seeing any. Do we have any delegates to this item?
We have no registered delegates for this matter. Thank you.
Can someone make the motion for the second reading? Councilor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that bylaw number 26/003, being the amendment to the NRESP tax incentive bylaw number 24/009, be read a second time.
Thanks, Councilor Weigel, and thank you for the second, Councilor Allen. Does Council have any other discussion, debate points, or comments? I don't see any. I'd just like to say I really like this bylaw, how it really promotes to businesses outside the region to come and invest, that we are open for business, and what we've seen with Wolf Midstream. And one other point that is in there that wasn't mentioned and Council may not have seen, you also has a stipulation that the workforce has to be residing in the community. There cannot be encampments. So that's a huge part of that bylaw as well. So thanks for bringing this forward, and thanks for the amendment. Council, have any other questions or debate points? Not seeing, I'll call for a vote. Councilor Brandt, thank you. And that's carried 10-1. Can I have someone make the motion for the third reading? Councilor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that bylaw number 26/003 be read a third and final time.
Thank you. And thanks, Councilor Allen, for the second. Council, have any other debate, discussion, or comments? Councilor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been kind of thinking about Councilor Boussier's question. The company that he was talking about is in fire protection, is it not?
To Chair to Councillor Weigel, I believe it was Green Fire, that Green Fire Resources Corporation that take over Everest, if that's the company.
And what does their company do?
The one that, I believe the one that we did the tax forgiveness is oil and gas production.
So it's production, because it's production, it's not support. So this is only for support companies and not for actual companies.
That's true.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Weigel. I'll call for a vote. Thanks, Councilor Brandt, in favor. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we have the report on the municipal census 2025. I'd like to invite Plan Development Services to introduce the report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Amanda Owens, Director of Planning and Development Services. I am here tonight with Kojo Efu, Manager of Customer Experience and Analytics. We are here to present Census 2025 and the story it tells about our region. The results indicate we are growing. Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo is a place where people continue to build their lives, raise families, and stay connected to one another. Census 2025 gives us insight into where the region is headed.
These insights inform planning for schools, infrastructure, municipal services, and community programs. It also provides insight for local service providers, businesses, and new investment opportunities. Census 2025 reflects a region where families are putting roots down. I'll hand it over to Kojo Efu to take us through the details of the results. But first, I want to personally thank him and his team for leading this important initiative and doing it well. And I would also like to note that it was done in-house without the use of consultants. Thank you.
Our demographics continue to reflect a vibrant and dynamic northern community. Census 2025 shows that we remain a youthful and working-age population with strong family presence and growing diversity. This demographic pattern tells us that people view the region not just as a place to work, but a place to stay, raise children, and be part of a welcoming, inclusive community. For 2025, our total population is 107,740 people. While the increase is modest, it's a meaningful 1.6% rise, which represents people choosing to stay, return, or move here because they see opportunity and belonging. After a decade shaped by challenges and resilience, this shift signals renewed optimism and stability across the region. For the first time in 10 years, our population has not decreased, and we are growing again. More people are choosing to live here permanently. I want to draw your attention to the bottom bars of this chart. As you can see, the population of Fort McMurray Urban Service Area is higher than what it was in 2015. Permanent residents have grown by over 11%. Meanwhile, the population of the rural communities is relatively stable. Project accommodation, which represent temporary workers, has decreased significantly by 44% since 2015. Census 2025 shows consistency in the gender breakdown with previous years, with more men than women. For the first time, the census expanded gender categories, which are represented on your screen. We continue to be a young and energetic region. 40% of the residents are between 20 and 44, with a gradual shift towards a slightly older working age population, a sign that people are staying longer and becoming more settled. The seniors population continue to show consistent growth, with more people choosing to retire here or move here to be closer to family. One of the strongest signs of community stability is how long people stay. Nearly 30% of residents have lived here 11 to 20 years, and over 23% have lived here for more than 20 years, signaling that the days of coming here with a 5-year plan are over. Census 2025 shows that 16% of our population is new to the region since the last census, which is a strong sign that the people continue to choose Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo as a place to build their lives. At the same time, most residents were already here in 2021, demonstrating deep community roots and long-term commitment. People are moving here from across Canada, especially from Alberta, Ontario, Newfoundland, and Labrador. Notably, 51% of in-migration are coming from Alberta, primarily from Edmonton and Calgary. This is an important shift because we used to lose people to these cities. Now, people from these cities are choosing to move here. These migration patterns highlight ongoing ties to our region, family drawing loved ones here, workers building their futures, and individuals choosing the lifestyle and opportunity offered in Wood Buffalo. Family is the #1 reason people move to our region. Over 37% of newcomers say they came to join relatives, and many others arrive for better housing and job opportunity. This is a major shift because the #1 reason for people moving here used to be for employment. Now, it's family. Most households in our region are made up of families, nearly 70%. This means couples, parents, children, and extended relatives are building shared homes and long-term lives together. For the first time, the census captured the role pets play in our daily lives, with more than 18,000 pets counted, from dogs and cats to birds, reptiles, and even some unique companions. It's clear that animals are part of the fabric of our household. This informs emergency preparedness, veterinary services, and pet-friendly spaces. Our housing story is one of stability with some shifts. The total number of occupied dwellings remains steady. Single detached homes remains the most important type of housing, but apartment, condos, townhouses, and manufactured home also play a significant role. This mix reflects the varied needs of families, individuals, and workers. It also ensures people can find housing that fits their life stage. A key highlight from Census 2025 is the continued shift towards more locally based workforce. We are finally seeing a notable decrease in temporary workers in the region and more people choosing to live here permanently. There is a significant decrease in the number of occupied project accommodation, known as work camp, from 68 to 25 camps, and the project accommodation population dropped by more than 22%. This continued with the fact that our permanent population increased by over 11%, indicates effort to support workforce localization are truly making a difference. Two-person household remain the most common in our region, followed closely by one-person and three-person household. This pattern reflects everything from young couples starting out to individuals living independently, to small and growing families. Together, these households shape the rhythm and needs of our community. Each time we conduct a census in our region, we look for ways to improve how people can access and interact with the result. For Census 2025, we created a dashboard that makes data easier to explore and understand. Residents, businesses, nonprofit, and other stakeholders can now dive into the numbers on their own, viewing demographic trend, exploring neighborhood changes, and drawing insight that matter to them. Full access to Census 2025 will be available through the municipal website. The big picture is clear. Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo is growing, stabilizing, and evolving. Long-term residents and newcomers alike are shaping a community full of opportunity, connection, and possibility. These census results not only tell us where we are today, but they also give us a confident sense of where we are heading. For Census 2025 result, the government of Alberta has accepted and approved all components except for a portion of our total population count derived through extrapolation. This extrapolated portion reflects households classified as non-contact, meaning census workers were unable to reach anyone in the dwelling after 3 attempts. For these non-contact dwellings, we applied the province's own extrapolation tool to estimate the population. We stand firmly behind our accuracy and the total population count for Census 2025. We will continue to work with the province to have the extrapolated portion approved and included in our official population total. Thank you to everyone who took part in Census 2025, from residents who counted themselves to team members and partners who made this possible. This data belongs to the whole community, and it will guide decisions that support families, strengthen neighborhood, attracts business, and help us continue to build a welcoming, thriving region. This concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Kojo. And if you stand behind these numbers, I'll stand behind them. So we'll go after that together. So thank you. Questions from council. Councillor Brandt.
Yeah, hello. I'm just curious, was pet reporting mandatory or optional?
Through the chair, the census is a completely voluntary exercise, and every question on the census is voluntary.
So how does this compare to our current pet licensing records? Do you know? Do you have that information?
Through the chair, no, at this time we haven't compared the pet license data to what we collected in the census, but it's part of what we want to do next.
Okay. And how does our pet household ratio compare to national averages?
Through the chair, we haven't computed that number either.
Okay. Does the other category include undocumented livestock in rural areas like Janvier and Conklin?
Through the chair, yes, it does.
The privacy disclaimer regarding the pet data. I mean, like, as many residents might be fearing that if they report an animal on the census, it's a backdoor for bylaw enforcement or a new pet tax. So if residents were explicitly told that data would be used only for planning, not for issuing fines, many likely opted not to report their animals. I'm getting at the point that I think these numbers are actually kind of low. The other part would be the shadow population, that people that just rent here and don't fill out these things. They're utilizing municipal parks and pet services, and they're not rarely captured in traditional counts. And then just with our current animal control staffing based on these numbers, is our full-time equivalent count for bylaw officers sufficient to manage nearly 20,000 animals? I mean, that question could be for anybody.
Through the chair to the question, we can circle back to the relevant departments, and we provide this information to all the departments, and they also look at it in terms of their service delivery. Going back to your point about numbers may be low, you're correct. People are disclosing what they want to disclose on the census, and we certainly don't use this as an enforcement tool. Like, any information that's collected in the census is based on a privacy. We don't go back and corroborate whether or not someone has a pet license, or if they have or if they're following the rules in relation to that. And we want to make that clear publicly, so that moving forward in any census, that there's no threat of any retribution beyond what we're collecting at the door or online. We're trying to gather as much accuracy as we can, because the numbers that we collect and report on help us provide better services, but also help us get grant funding from other levels of government.
And through the chair, if I may further add, as part of the census, we conduct extensive communication and marketing campaign, and part of that, we make it very clear that the information collected is solely for the purpose of planning and not for enforcement or anything, and the information is heavily protected. Only very few people have access to that data. Therefore, I think we made it very clear that information will not be used in any kind of enforcement. But also, this is the first time that we're asking that question. So typically, when you ask a question the first time on a census, it takes people a bit of time to get used to it. So I'm suspecting that if we ask this question again in the future census, we might see a higher number.
I agree. I would just like to see more education on the subject, so that people understand that this isn't in a form of punishment, because I know that's one of the issues with the census in general. The only other thing I would really consider is the fact that if we've got 18,395 pets, which I think is actually quite low, and we've only got 5,000 licenses, that's like significant revenue that could be funding more animal services. So just something to look at. But again, I just want people to understand that it's not for punishment purposes. I just think that is a misconception that's out there. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Brandt. Councillor Cardinal?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Do we count the reservations?
Through the chair, no, we do not have jurisdiction to conduct census on reserves.
Have you asked for jurisdiction?
Through the chair, the regulation that governs the census is very clear, that we can only count on municipal land and not on reserve. So even if we ask for permission, we'll be denied.
From who?
From the province, from the government of Alberta.
I don't think so.
Through the chair, are you alluding to the federal census?
No, I'm just saying, like, you have the reservations that are part of the community, like the ATRs, like those are throughout the whole community of Fort Chipewyan and Anzac and all those places. And I just feel that us not counting the people that live on the reservation doesn't build the community.
Through the chair, that's correct. It's a challenge that we've continually seen in Fort Chip, because there's a lot of addresses that are within the reserve or that have been transferred to the reserve that we can't count on, and that is leading to consistent decrease in Fort Chip population in our census. But the federal census actually count on reserve, but we do not have permission to count as per the regulation on reserve.
Have you asked the feds for their numbers so we can share a concrete census number?
Through the chair, the federal census numbers are available online. We can get that for you at another time if you need.
Yeah, I think it'd be kind of good to have a projection that's accurate rather than leaving out the First Nation people. Like, they've been left out from us for the longest time. And it's about time that I think we got to find a path forward with some of that, and maybe the CAO can take this down. But I think it's important that we collaborate with them and pull them all together, and that we can have a municipal census that involves the Indigenous communities and the reservations and the ATRs. It's important that I think we do that and find a path forward with that. Like, leaving them out is like, I'm not for that. I thought they were part of the municipal census, and I guess if I can get maybe a comment from the CAO on that one.
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, there's many services that we don't have the jurisdiction on, I guess, the First Nations lands. I think this is a very regulated, the census itself, the process is very regulated and laid out. So like you said, the provincial government has a lot of, I guess, rolls out the I guess, how to conduct a census. And so in order to, I guess we can ask the question, we certainly can. That's not what, but the information there is done through the federal body, and it is publicly available online, as they said. So
yeah, just maybe if we can find a path forward that we can work together with the feds or with Alberta to find you know, some numbers that we can share together rather than, you know, reserving them. That's what I think, if that can be possible at some point, maybe. Or if
I guess what I can commit to Councillor Cardinal and all of councils, there's no harm in asking, and we'll reach out and ask the question.
I'd really appreciate that, CAO. Thank you. I got one more question. I see that in Fort Chipewyan, there's the population is down 241. I'm just curious, where did everyone go?
Through the chair to the question, Coach, I'm sure you'll have more to add there. That goes to your point that you were just saying around not being able to capture the numbers of the reserve. When we see addition to reserve and those lands that we once used to count are now part of the reserve, we can't count it anymore. And so in the paperwork in our census, it looks like there's less people in Fort Chipewyan, but it's those addition to reserves that are drawing down on, it looks like it's drawing down on the population because we can't capture that total population between Hamlet and the reserve itself.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, I just kind of think I believe that we need to find a different path forward, because, you know, if you look at the municipal census and then you have a decrease in the population in our hamlet, then what happens is, you know, nations grow, ATRs are going to grow. So what's going to happen is the population in Fort Chipewyan and these First Nation communities that are alongside our municipalities, they're going to increase, and then we're going to decrease, and the perception maybe, if a person doesn't, you know, analyze the census to the best of their ability, they're going to say, well, man, this place is becoming a ghost town, or, you know what I mean? What's going on with it? Or that's what I would see with the numbers. Like, eventually it's going to be lower and lower because the ATRs and the reserves are growing. So, and then the municipality is in the rural is getting smaller.
Through the chair, whenever we're using the census numbers and doing work with it, we don't just use the census number in isolation with other data points. So, for example, the federal census is another data point that we take into consideration, especially for an area like Fort Chipewyan, where we already know that the numbers may be down, not because truly people are not there, but because where we could count before, we couldn't count in those locations anymore because the lands have been transferred to reserves. So we use a combination of ways to determine what the true population could really be. But for official population numbers in terms of documents, we have to tightly follow the regulation, and the regulation does not allow us to go count on reserve land. However, sometimes there are opportunities where the regulation can be changed. In 2019, this regulation that guides the census was actually repealed completely and was brought back. And when it was brought back in 2022, there were opportunities to make some changes to the regulations. So I think when the time comes for the regulation to be, updated, then these could be brought forward where it will be included in the new regulation possibly.
Thank you. I have one more question, which is, when they were doing the census, out of the percentage of the census, how much do you believe we missed? I guess I could say.
Through the chair, every time we're doing the census, we establish what we call a dwelling inventory. So we go through a process of identify what every dwelling houses are before we go out to do the census. So in 2025, our dwelling inventory was a little over 32,000 dwellings. And those 32,000 dwellings, we made contact with each one of them. Some dwellings, we counted people. Some, we couldn't count people after 3 attempts. And some dwellings refused to participate in the census altogether. So we did what we call 100% enumeration, which means throughout the process of contacting the residents, we were able to make contact with all of them. So technically, we didn't miss anyone.
So how much more effective do you believe if you have the locals be the ones doing the census and contract it out?
Through the chair, every time we do the census, at least since 2015, we make effort to use locals to do the census, even in the rural communities. However, we do encounter tremendous challenge recruiting in rural communities, including in census 2025. We've made several attempts. We've used different tactics to try to recruit in rural communities, including changing the pay rate for enumerators in the rural community to make it more attractive. But we really struggle to find any locals to do the enumeration. Sometimes we find locals, but they didn't stick throughout the whole census. And it got to a point where we had to send people from here to complete the census in places like Fort Chip.
So what happens if nobody answers the door 2 times and you just move on? And that house is just a number on the census, but no count for the person?
So what happens when we visit a dwelling, we have to do minimum of 3 attempts. We can do a little more, but in order to finish the census on time, we do minimum of 3 attempts because the census has to be 3 consecutive months. So if we start from April 1st, we have to finish by June 30th. So when we do the 3 attempts and we're not able to enumerate the resident, we can ask the neighbor. The regulation allows us to ask the neighbor if the dwelling is occupied and if they know the total number of people in the dwelling. So we can get that information from the neighbor. And if we are not able to get that information from the neighbor, then we simply mark the house as non-contact, which means we believe the house is occupied, but we just couldn't make contact with anyone to count them.
So if you believe the house is occupied, what do you count it as?
We count it as non-contact, which means we didn't count anyone in the house. However, the province has allowed us a tool to extrapolate population from those non-contact houses, which we did. However, we're in a bit of a dispute with the province on those extrapolated population right now.
I guess one other one was, I'm just curious why we ended up started counting animals.
Through the chair, the reasons why we included a question about pets is because our colleagues in Fort McMurray Buffalo Economic Development Corporation, they've approached us several times since 2023, wanting to know the total number of pets in the region because they heard from residents that there's tremendous challenge with veterinary services in the region, and they're trying to attract more veterinary services in the region, but they didn't have any real number to back up what the needs would be. So when the opportunity came for us to do the census, they approached us again and asked us if we could help them get a sense of what the numbers of pets in the region are, and that's the reason why we introduced the census question. But this data also end up going to be quite useful for emergency preparedness because based on evidence and information that we've seen out there, one of the most difficult things that happens during emergency evacuation is people not want to leave their pets behind. So if the emergency services know the number of pets or which household have certain pets, it may help them prepare a little better in terms of how to do evacuation in certain areas.
Right on, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Scott?
Hi, Kojo. I just wanted to start by thanking you and Sandra for all you've done for our region. We're certainly grateful. I know this, you've done many census over the years, and we're certainly grateful for all you've done. Just speaking to your last point, and just for the benefit of everybody else, I actually heard that quite a bit. Unless we have census data for pets, we're not going to be able to attract veterinarians, just like you know, the more pets, the more vets, the more people, the more likely we're going to get retail stores because it's a better place to be. So one matches the other. One area that I've historically always brought up, and I think, Kojo, you remember our discussions on this, the federal government does a census, or they have a census number that is substantially lower than our number, and they base their transfers to our region based on that number. But just to remind everybody the difference, what is that number to your recollection?
Through the chair to the question, as of 2021, when the federal government did their census of our region, the population that they assigned to us is a little over 73,000 people, and that does not include any of the shadow population.
Yeah, so just as a reminder to everybody, the reason the government does that, Carney's government, they pretend we're at a much lower number, they save some money. So every time you hear that we have a lower population, that's a bunch of, well, I won't complete that sentence, but that's exactly what it is. It's a bunch of bull. And when you're dealing with a province and you had to reduce some numbers, can you say how much that reduction, the amount that's at issue with the province, what's the bottom line on it? How many people are they disputing essentially?
Yeah, through the chair, we extrapolated a total of non-contact and refuse dwelling for about 2,400 dwellings, and that ended up about 5,000 people. So they are refusing the 5,000 extrapolated population because they do not believe that the total number of dwelling is equal what we reported.
Yeah, you can just invite them to come up here and take a tour. They could see it for themselves, or they could drive to work in the mornings, get stuck in the traffic. What I would also suggest is that we just talk a bit about the shadow population. It's been a historical topic of mine. I know Brian Jean's very passionate about it. But a lot of people identify that there's camps that it's 14 days in, 14 days out, or some structure like that. So how do we know we're capturing the person that's in it during one period and then the person that's in it during the next period?
Through the chair, the census is a time, a snapshot, a specific time count. So we can only count people that are here as of April 1st, which is the census reference date. So anyone that was in a camp on April 1st is what we counted. So after April 1st, there could have been 3 more people, but we could not count them. However, the number that we ended up with is sort of close to what the average is, because when we asked the camp to tell us how many people were there on April 1st, we wanted to understand the cyclical nature of the camp population as well. So we asked them to tell us about what the population was the third quarter 2024, fourth quarter 2024, and what the population also was first quarter 2025. And then for them to tell us what the population is on April 1st. So when we compare all those 3 numbers, they're very close to what we ended up with as about around 22,000 people.
Right, but it's fair to say that if multiple people are living in the same room, we're not always capturing that because people are in and out of that room, depending on who is there on April 1st. Is that a fair comment?
Through the chair, not really, because what we asked the camp to tell us is for them to tell us how many people are at the camp. So if 2 people are sharing beds, those will be included in this number.
Yeah, and how many beds are in the region?
Based on what is reported, we have a total almost 40,000 beds.
We have 40,000 beds, and sorry, how many people are you saying are staying in those beds?
About half of those are utilized, about 22,000 people.
So I'm just seeing an odd discrepancy in those two numbers there. It strikes me as a little bit odd because, as far as I understand it, there's still camps being utilized to a great extent. Is the number of housing applications mirroring what you're seeing in this census? Because from what I'm hearing from folks who build houses, the housing market has really been moving, but this is, if correct, pretty exciting news. It's a big jump in the census.
Through the chair, to the question, we're not seeing a significant increase in new builds. There is some new construction, but the increase in permanent population is utilizing most of our housing stock that is existing already. The increase in permanent population isn't completely tied to new construction.
Yeah, so I guess empty houses are now being filled up with people, or apartments or whatever it is. Okay, well, I appreciate Kojo and the entire team, all that you do. I'm certainly grateful, and this is a good news story, if accurate. And Kojo, I know you've worked very hard on this, so I assume it is accurate. And maybe just one last question. When's the last time we had a population this high?
Through the chair, the last time we saw any slight uptick was around 2015. After 2015, we've been in a decline until now.
Yeah, so this is a good news story, so I would just emphasize that in case people aren't picking up on that. Thanks again.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Boussier?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Through the chair to Kojo and Amanda, thank you for the presentation. Kojo, just personally, it's a massive loss losing you. I know you're leaving the municipality in the region. It is a huge loss to this region. You're a quiet soldier. I had the privilege of being able to work alongside you with this census and a previous one, and just have a deep respect for the respect that you brought to ensuring people were captured, to adjusting and pivoting to make sure you were respecting the needs of seniors. We're out here and we were saying, don't give information to strangers, don't give out this, there's too many frauds and scams. And you went out of your way to make sure that the seniors, you gave us the pictures of what they would be wearing, first questions that would be asked, so we could assure the seniors and let them know who was coming, came to our event, the St. Aidan's event. And I'm just deeply grateful for the work that you put in and the respect that you gave to both my team at the time and the seniors in general. So, and I think your wife's fantastic. You're a massive loss to this community. Thank you for all you've done for Fort McMurray and the municipality. I just do have a couple questions. The 2,400 dwellings that equates to 5,000 people, is there a dollar amount that you can attach to that in terms of loss of revenue for the region?
Through the chair to Councillor Boussier, first of all, thank you for those kind words. They're very much appreciated. My team really enjoyed working with your group, trying to identify all the seniors. It's been a very important objective for us to identify the seniors population every time that we're doing the census, and working with your group was really tremendous. It helps us. It shows in the numbers of seniors population. Mm-hmm. In terms of the potential loss of revenue, if the province continues to reject the extrapolated population, the numbers would come roughly to around $1 million, and that's based on a $200 per person average. But that's not the final figures. It depends on how much money is actually in the funds that we apply for. But our rough estimates suggest about $1 million.
Ouch. Okay, thank you. And just the last question to Councillor Cardinal's issue about losing the capture of on reserve. And I understand why, that it's federal. Is there anything that precludes us from adding the federal numbers in any of our communications, or is there a reason we don't add those numbers?
Through the chair, there's nothing stopping us from adding the Fed's numbers to the total population numbers. The only thing is we cannot submit those numbers to the province as part of our total population, but for internal use, internal work, internal analysis, supporting project, we could add those numbers. There's nothing stopping us.
And our communications out, like to community, like the booklets that you always do, including that wouldn't be a problem?
Would not be a problem.
Is there any best practice around it that says don't do or?
Through the chair, there's no specific best practice. It really depends on what we want to do and how we want to use the numbers. But what we'll do if we'll always make sure that the Fed portion that we're adding, we will clarify that number is coming from the federal census and not from the municipal census.
Okay, perfect. Because I agree, it would be a really good addition, and just from a ex-selfish, I guess, nonprofit point of view, would strengthen grant applications provincially and federally for the nonprofits to be able to capture number of persons served, because for most of the nonprofit organizations, it's irrelevant if somebody is on reserve or not. Like we don't care. St. Aidan's doesn't care if they serve somebody on reserve, they'll serve somebody. So it would really strengthen grant applications if that could be captured even as a footnote in the documents that go out.
Through the chair, I agree. And you will also show a clearer picture or a true picture of what the community actually is instead of not. Part of the reason why we did not do it this time is because every time we've been doing the census, we are so fearful of getting our census rejected by the province, so we try to do it exactly by the book, and that's the reason why we don't go a little outside of the drawing boundaries.
Sounds like they reject it whether you go by the book or not, so well done. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Boussier. Councillor Allen?
Thank you, through the chair. And Amanda, you remember back in the day when we were doing Envision 250K? That 250,000 people we were growing towards, and growing at a rate of 16% a year. It's kind of nice to be at this rate of growth now, just for planning purposes and whatnot. But I just, it's really nice to see some positive news in this particular report. So thank you for really solid work, and I like that. We never used to get to that 100 percentile before we sent to the province. And I do too. I would also echo my support for communications to have some data in there for what our total region population is, regardless of whether we're submitting to the province or not. Both for assistance, for funding for social profits, for funding for other organizations, for sports groups that are doing things, but also for our own municipal services, for shared support services that we do, both in community services, but also our mutual aid, emergency services. It's good to know what we're planning towards, and our partners in the Indigenous communities, are they growing? Are they getting smaller? To see those trends, I think, would be important for all of us in our planning. Plus, I don't think, I'm not sure that there's many Canadians that even are aware that we have 5 First Nations in our region, 9 Indigenous groups in total. And I think that just for interest for the country, it'd be nice to be able to point out that this is how strong we are and how well we work together as groups. So that's just a point of support to include that data, just in communications. It doesn't even have to be part of our official census, but it could be part of our communications. But I also wanted to ask about the logistics. Councillor Scott talked about the project accommodations and where we're doing that. With the mechanics, is it just based on the one day, April 1st? It doesn't have a period of leading up to that? Or, because even with 40,000 beds that we know, and that's part of our licensing agreement with the industry, and where our revenues come from in giving licensing to them, do we have the ability of knowing how many of those are permanently closed of the 40,000 beds? Is it just on that day only 50% of them were being utilized?
Through the chair, the specific number of beds that are closed, I don't have that number on top of my head right now, but we can sort of work out through our data within planning and development to come up estimate that number. But one thing that we've also noticed over the years is the number of camps, occupied camps, have actually been decreasing consistently. We went from 68 camps in 2021 to only 25 that were occupied during this census. So we've also noticed quite a bit of amalgamation between camps as well, although the number of beds may seem a little high, but they were higher around 2019. That was around 80-something thousand beds. So the number of beds have consistently decreased as well overall. In terms of counting, we could only count on April 1st. But the way the regulation is written specifically for shadow population, which the camp population is part of, is we can only count people that have been here for at least 15 days prior to April 1st. So anyone that has not been at least here 15 days prior to April 1st, we can't count. Again, we try to be very strict in how we do the census to respect the regulation so that we don't get our numbers rejected. But there could be a little bit more or a little bit less, depends on when people show up in the region.
So is it possible that there's some underreporting for those that are coming in for on a 7 days on, 7 days off, or 14 days on or 10 days on and 7 days off? I don't know. The shifts vary from site to site.
Through the chair, there could be, but again, that's part of the reason why we asked them to give us the number from previous quarters as well, so that we can run some comparison. So based on that, I think the numbers are fairly accurate, what we ended up with, but there could always be, here and there, small numbers either side that we could miss.
Right, okay. No, thanks for the clarification. I know that it's encouraging to see the number of camps that you say are closed now. And we see that in the numbers. It's a dramatic drop from 2015. So good work in compiling the information.
Thank you. Sorry, if I just want to add one point because it seems to be coming up this evening. When we count project accommodations, we're interested in the occupied bed. That's what we're looking at. We're not necessarily looking at the demographic or the individual. We want to know how many of those beds are occupied essentially on that April 1st count date. And that April 1st data reference date is for the whole region, not just for project accommodations. We apply that to the entire census.
Right, good, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. Do we have any Councillor Scott?
Yeah, just following up on what was just said, wouldn't you agree it's fair to say that our population is actually higher than we're indicating because people come in and out of the region on days other than April 1st, but we're counting specifically April 1st. So the news is even, well, I'm not a fan of camps, I think everybody knows that, but generally our population is probably higher than we're indicating.
Through the chair to the question, and Kodra, you might want to add something to that. Yes, I would say that statement is accurate.
Thanks, Councillor Scott. Do we have any delegates to this item?
We have no delegates, thank you.
Thanks. Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Cardinal?
Oh, there we go. I move that the municipal census 2025 results be accepted as information.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal, and thanks for the second, Councillor Weigel. Does Council have any other debate, discussion, or comments before we vote? I'm not seeing any. I just want to kind of look at the 10,000-foot level. I've said once or said 1,000 times, we've gone from a small town to a boom town to what's now a hometown. And I think the census shows that with the amount of people that have chosen to live here. And they're not just moving here for jobs. They're moving here to be with their family. They're moving here to have homes. And as Koju mentioned, it's not a 5-year plan anymore. It's we want to live in this community plan. And we see that from everything in the community. So I really want to thank industry for working with us. And I think that shows a lot in the increased permanent population as well as the decrease in camps. As you also mentioned that, and thank our municipality for rolling out programs like downtown revitalization, because if you look at the statistics, the biggest growth was actually in our downtown. Over all the places in the community, that's where the biggest growth took in people moving to. So I think hats off to our plan development and rolling out that downtown revitalization program. I think that has a lot to do with it, making a better place to live, and all the things we have moving in downtown, where it's arts, incubator down there, that stuff all grows into a community and people want to live here. So I want to thank municipality, everybody that took part in this, and I'm not going to reiterate all of Luana's comments and Councillor Scott's, but we all feel the same way, Kojo, and you and your wife have contributed to this community, and we'll be going after the Minister of Municipal Affairs together, and we'll try to get that $1 million added on there. I don't see anybody else hand up, so I'd like to call for a vote. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Kojo. Yep. And we'll take a 15-minute bio break, and we'll be back at 7 o'clock. Welcome back. Now we have a report on the 2026 Public Artwork Plan. I'd like to invite Community Services and Public Art Committee to introduce the report, please.
Good evening. Before I start the presentation, I do have a response to one of the questions Councillor Boussier's asked Janelle with the Fort Chipewyan Heritage. They had been a registered charity, but that charity status was revoked in 2021 for a similar reason, that when they became struck, lack of documentation. Okay. Okay. Okay, now for the 2026 Public Art Work Plan. Do we have our presentation going? Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Tony Elliott, Director of Community Services, and with me this evening is Jana McMillan, Chair of the Public Art Committee. Tonight we are presenting the highlights from the 2025 Public Art Program and the proposed 2026 Public Art Work Plan. Council approved the Wood Buffalo Public Art Plan on May 26, 2021. This was the first public art plan for the municipality, and it sets a comprehensive framework for the program. The mandate of the Public Art Program is to strengthen community identity and sense of place through the creation and development of public art in the region. The Public Art Plan focuses on 5 main outcomes: to increase the capacity and build a robust public art ecosystem, to ensure sustainable structures and supports, to support a vibrant public realm, to encourage a more visible Indigenous presence, and to encourage a connected community.
The 2026 proposed work plan categorizes projects under the following program areas: acquisition, artist and community, temporary art, public sites, private sites, and conservation will also be planned for as the collection grows and ages.
This slide outlines the roles and responsibilities within the Public Art Program. In the center of the diagram is the Public Art Program and Work Plan. The work plan is presented annually to Council along with a request to draw down on the Public Art Reserve to financially support the planned projects. The Public Art Work Plan takes into consideration opportunity for artists and projects, internal and external capacity, tentative timelines for project delivery, project scope and type, and the proposed budgets. Council's role in the Public Art Program is to approve the Public Art Plan, which it did in 2021, and to consider public or policy amendments as they are brought forward. They also approve the annual funding allocations to the Public Art Reserve in alignment with the public art policy. This is part of the capital budget proceedings that will be presented to Council next week and is intended to ensure the Public Art Program is sustainable over time. Council also approves the annual Public Art Work Plan and drawdown from the reserve. Community Services' role is to coordinate and deliver the Public Art Program, and the Public Art Committee advises on and supports the Public Art Program, including the annual work plan, and provides input for selection panels and program development.
The annual work plan identifies upcoming projects and activities to be undertaken by the public art staff. The Public Art Work Plan aligns with the Wood Buffalo Public Art Plan, is developed in collaboration with the Public Art Committee and municipal departments, includes information on in-progress projects, and outlines new projects, and outlines the budget request from the Public Art Reserve. The acquisition program has a goal to acquire works of art that enrich communities and form a visual history of the region. 2025 highlights include the acquisition for artworks for Jubilee Lobby. Installation to occur in the upcoming months with celebrations scheduled for March 19th from 5 to 7 p.m. We hope that council can attend. Main floor Jubilee will feature the following Indigenous artworks: a men's traditional fancy bustle artwork titled Stars in the Mist by Bernadette Dumais, a First Nation artist; mixed media artwork titled 4 Generations and Counting by Jane Poitois, renowned Indigenous artist who was born in Fort Chipewyan; soapstone carving titled Eagle Spirit, Sean McClure from Fort McKay; and a reproduction of family applique titled Maggie Pollen's Mucklucks by Tiffany Shaw and Elizabeth King, Métis work. The 2026 work plan will launch an annual acquisition program seeking pre-existing artworks from regional artists. Artworks will be reviewed and recommended for acquisition by a selection panel. Selected art will become part of the public art collection and put on display in municipal and community facilities. Temporary works of art are created for a specific event, place, occasion, and time. These works are not considered part of the permanent public art collection. The graphic wrap program updated wraps completed fall 2025 and features 30 images that were selected as part of the 2024 graphic wrap program call. The 2025 Street Banner Program highlights include 116 artists, 121 submissions received for the theme of Wheels in Motion. Designs were featured at the Kirshner Family Community Art Gallery. 72% of these submissions were from youth ages 12 to 17 years of age. 22% of submissions were from rural communities, and 12 designs were selected, with final selection including entries from Anzac, Janvier-Sapri Creek, Fort McKay, Fort Chipewyan, and Fort McMurray. The 2026 temporary program will include funds for the annual Street Banner Program. 3 2024 mural projects carried over and completed in 2025. Unearthing Black Gold is a series of 4 7-foot by 13-foot composite panel murals by local artist Alexandra Kavanaugh. This can be found in the courtyard off of the arrivals level of the Fort McMurray International Airport. Unity Through Diversity by artist Maria Rosa SZY covers both sides of the underpass in Parsons Creek. Redesign of the pop-up photography mural, originally featured in Keon Park, was installed at the Community Policing Office in Jubilee Plaza. This project features the photography talents of Crystal Mercredi and graphic design of Sedef Uzair. The 2026 temporary program will include funds for the 5 to 7 murals, including a mural mentorship opportunity for Janvier/Conklin. 2025 began with the launch of the Jubilee Gallery exhibit program, which provides space for artists with regional connections to exhibit their artworks. Artists can apply as a solo or a group with up to 4 exhibits planned annually. Last year, Jubilee Gallery featured 88 artworks over 3 exhibits by 8 talented artists with a connection to Wood Buffalo. Jubilee Gallery exhibit program will continue in 2026. We are hearing from artists that this is a great opportunity to gain experience exhibiting and to build an artist resume. Ignite is a biennial event that features temporary light-based artworks. The 8th Ignite event was held October 1st to 5th in 2025, running from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at Keom Community Park. This event featured 6 illuminated exhibits by 5 artist teams, including 1 local collaboration. Festival activities, live performances, community craft activities, and food trucks provided entertainment and activities for the community. Exhibiting artists included Lightbox Projects, Big Art, Johan Kalman, Alex P., Hubris and Nemesis, and Dream Dance Circus. The Art for Social Change exhibit was developed in collaboration with the Regional Advisory Committee on Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Committee and creatively explored the theme of accessibility. This program partnered artists with social profit organizations to challenge perspectives and highlight community support. 7 multidisciplinary artists, including 2 local artists, created installations that were on exhibit at Keano College from December 3rd, International Persons with Disabilities Day, through December 10th, International Human Rights Day. Exhibiting artists included Imani Edwards, Kui Chinsei, Leanna Wielden, Roberto Santagita, Robin Rennie, Sonia Burke-Smith, and Steve De Bruyne. I also work with one of the social profit organizations that connected with a local artist exhibiting in this program. It was an empowering experience for the program participants when they explored conversations on self-esteem and labels and how to be kinder. The artists also spent their time with our program participants exploring art. This success and impact from this exhibit was shared with our national organization and has resulted in an invitation to speak on the topic of art as advocacy at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri this summer. Public sites feature public art in the public realm. Examples in the community are reflections on the river on the McDonald Drive Causeway and winter solstice at Doug Barnes Cabin. Public sites projects can take on many forms, including a sculpture or three-dimensional artwork, a functional element like a bench, bike rack, play structure, or lighting, architecture or landscape integration where artworks and designs are embedded into space, as well as digital installations. These projects can be delivered in a variety of methods, including artist commissions, artist on design teams, public art residencies, and use of curators to manage projects. Public Art Bench program aims to strengthen the visual connection between rural and urban communities. This program supports the creation of 2 benches, one for the rural community and the other for Fort McMurray. Fort Chippewan artists Emma Voyager and Jessica Powder have developed 4 designs, and Fort Chippewan residents selected their top 2 designs in 2025. The fabrication of these benches are underway. Northside Twin Arena Community Engagement and Development will continue with the selected artist team, Red Knot Studios.
The 2026 work plan for public sites will feature the continuation of the Public Art Bench program, beginning with community engagement and artist identification for Fort McKay. And the Public Art program staff will continue to work with Indigenous and rural relations on community engagement in Fort Chippewan as directed by Council in July 2025. The waterfront project will progress in 2026 with the public art staff working collaboratively with the Wood Buffalo Waterfront Advisory Committee, the Public Art Committee, and Indigenous peoples to engage in conversations on historical significance of these lands and waterways, honor cultural processes, and explore ideas for capturing the significance of place. The Public Art Program staff continues to deliver on these programs, projects, and activities which have been approved in prior years in each of the program areas. The resolution before you today is to draw down $816,500 from the Public Art Reserve for the 2026 Public Art Work Plan as follows. $20,000 for acquisitions of existing artworks, $159,000 for temporary art projects, which includes annual street banners, mural mentorship, and murals, $627,500 for public site projects that include public art benches and installations along the waterfront, and $10,000 to support conservation of the artworks already acquired. The Public Art Committee reviewed the 2026 work plan and provided their support for these activities at their regular meeting held on November 12th, 2025. And this concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Tony, and thanks, Jenna. Just a reminder to council, questions right now. So if council has any questions they'd like to ask, Councilor Vardy.
Why do I feel that was directed at me, Mayor Bowman? My question is around the street banner program. I know last term that it was removed from having kids under 12. So my question is, within the new plan, how do we plan on capturing and supporting our young artists younger than 12 to participate in these programs?
That is a question that is always in conversation and in development for the street banner program. We tweak with, again, eligibility and everything kind of every year. I cannot speak to what the parameters this specific year are, but that can be a conversation because artist development and community engagement is something that we do for every single program. So I think ways in which to engage those younger groups while still embodying the intentions of the street banner program is something that needs to always be in conversation and is still like a work in progress that we're still working on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Councilor Vardy. Councilor Cardinal.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. looks like a whole lot's being done, which is great. Does the Public Art Committee plan on doing an exhibition of a regional exhibition of some sort in the near future or future?
I know that upcoming, it will be our mural festival that we are engaging in this year, and I know that any sort of debuts or celebration nights are always in conversation about what time of year is best, where and when. I do know that we want to engage specifically with rural communities this year, so like celebrating any sort of mural work and mural mentorship that happened in Janvier and Conklin specifically is what we're hoping to do, is something that is going to be community-led. In terms of any other sort of festivals this year, I cannot speak to anything off the top of my head.
Through the chair, I don't know of anything other than what's already mentioned. There is the unveiling of the benches that will be fabricated in Fort Chipewyan. That will have some celebration around that. And as was mentioned, the acquired art will be unveiled in March here in
Jubilee Gallery lobby. Yeah. So that's all the ones that we can foresee in the near future. Did you have any ideas on other ideas?
Well, just thinking like how does everybody come together at one big event and showcase their art? That's kind of what I was talking about, rather than.
Yeah, I don't think we have. Yeah, I don't think we have one centralizing a festival or event. We usually do it to be program specific. So, for example, our street banner program, all submissions, regardless of if they are selected or not, are displayed at the Kirshner Family Gallery. When we do our mural festival, we usually have one day of celebration somewhere central that everyone can speak to, similar to Ignite, and then it is site specific usually for other. Examples, like Art for Social Change, any sort of like celebration nights that we did were specifically at the exhibits that were at Kano. Yeah.
And I'll add still the exhibitions, I think there are 3 or 4 planned for 2026. I'm not sure if they've all been prescribed yet, but I would say that the Public Art Committee and the selection panels would be open to ideas about what could be displayed here in Jubilee Plaza or Jubilee Center.
Yeah, and then when we reach out, we already have our newsletter that we do in terms of like communicating that these events are happening, and then we are in regular conversation with the municipal communications team about the best way to communicate that these events are regular and ongoing throughout the year.
Curious, is the newsletter just virtual? Like Facebook and stuff like that, or is it actually in paper form?
Yeah, so we have an email-based communications that we do for public art, and then any other like Facebook and other things are deferred to the communications team at the RMWB. So they are the ones that coordinate all that, any sort of press releases or anything that we do on Facebook and stuff are done through them specifically.
Can we maybe add that into some rural newsletters?
We can look into it. I know that I'm not an expert on what sort of communications strategies we specifically have for our public art, but I can make a note that that could be something that the Public Art Committee supports, and the public art staff can kind of coordinate with those rural communities to make sure that maybe explore other avenues for communications. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Question about the statue in Fort Chipewyan. How's coordination going with IRR on that?
I can take that one. Yeah. I know that those conversations are ongoing. I know that there's other projects happening in the community as well, and so we want to be respectful of some of those other engagements that are happening about other sites that have great significance to the community. So I think those conversations are going well, but it's going to take some time because of the other programs that are happening as well.
Okay, thanks. Street banner program. How many street banners are going up in Ward 2? I'd like to know specific to Fort McKay, maybe by don't know if Fort Fitz has got anything going on, if you guys are communicating with them at all, but I know there's a limited amount of residents, but, and then Fort Chippewa as well, so.
Sorry, I don't think I have the number about the actual numbers that are produced each year. I know our resident expert is sitting in the gallery. She will know.
She might know. I do know that they go up. Again, I don't have a number off the top of my head if Karen
Sorry.
wants to jump in really quick.
Joining us is Karen Puga. She is one of our public art program staff, and she will give you that number. So push. Yeah.
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal.
Hello.
Hello. Fort McKay has a number of, I believe we send about 25 banners out to them, and we work with the rural operations team to put them up throughout that community. Fort Chippewa, I send up 8 a year, but I believe I'm going to have to check with operations up there. I believe that there was a windstorm last year that took down the poles. So we're looking at trying to get a solution to get those back up in the community. And Fort Fitzgerald, we have not had any success on finding an opportunity. So in Fort McMurray, we put them up on municipal poles. It's a bit more challenge in our rural areas where poles aren't, and we have to develop special relationships through utilities to get them up to have a shared kind of agreement.
So, would adding funds to a budget to have these banners help this initiative?
I think it's being able to identify sites and working with those rural communities and our operations teams just to be able to figure out the best sites and how many
poles.
How many poles. And I mean, if it's I mean, some of our poles are double-sided, so we have 2 pole. Like if you go down some of our other rural communities like Anzac, they will have 2 to a pole, but they've, through their placemaking efforts, have put in stronger poles, and I think the ones in Fort Chippewa just didn't handle a windstorm.
Okay. Is there, okay, I'm just curious as to what specific poles we need, because I want to help. I want to help if I can with that, but I'll leave that till later, I guess.
Through the chair, we can do some research and have some information available.
Because I know that there's no pole banners there, and there's no banners, so
I think Elliot might have something to add to that.
Through the chair to some of the comments here. In Fort McKay, we're doing a project where we are replacing the poles, so we'll have an opportunity to place more flags in that community. When it comes to Fort Chippewa, we've talked about this recently. We're planning to do a feasibility study on linear infrastructure. So we could look at putting a line item in that feasibility study to look at poles in the community along with other infrastructure and potentially present to council what's available, what's not available, what are the gaps, and then you would be able to looking at capital projects to do community improvements. So that would be something you'd want to look at for Fort Chippewa if that's something you're interested in. I can't speak to Fort Fitzgerald, so I just want to share that with you.
No, that sounds good. I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. I'll leave it to the next person. I got one more, but go ahead.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Luana.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Through the chair to the presenters, thank you for the presentation. I have a question about the budget. So it's 0.5, 0.5% of the annual construction costs of approved capital projects go to this committee. When? In January or December? Because those budgets are very different.
So through the chair, we call it the Percent for Art program, and it's for, in the public art policy, it's very clear what are eligible projects. That is allocated during the approval of a capital budget. So you'll see it next week. It's a line item that stands out as a part of the resolution that I think there's an estimate of about less than $50,000 to be allocated for 2026 capital budget. So it's set aside. And if there's a new project that comes online mid-year, the Twin Arenas is an example, where we also get 0.5% for something that's outside of budget cycle, if that makes sense.
Oh, so it doesn't matter what happens throughout the year, you always get 0.5?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Oh, okay, perfect, thanks.
Thanks, Councilor Boussier. Councilor Scott?
Thanks very much, Mayor. So I'm just going to ask a question related to something that's arisen over the years, but I don't know if it's ever fallen on your laps. I can't remember who this ended up being with previously. Are we currently considering or funding large placemaking letters as an installation somewhere in the region as a photo stop, like other cities have? Ottawa being the one that I've visited most recently, where everybody goes to the big giant letters of Ottawa that are artistic. They're not just letters that say Ottawa. They're made quite beautifully. I just think that something to beautify the way into Fort McMurray, which isn't exactly what we would think is ideal. And although it's provincial land, I'm sure we could encourage the province to carve out some land, and it would be a great tourism opportunity or a way to take pride in this region. So I just want to put that in everyone's radar and ask that question.
Yeah. Through the chair, I've not heard of that suggestion before. I don't know if the committee has.
Yeah, it's not currently something that we are specifically looking into, but it can be incorporated into any sort of programs. We can look into the feasibility of that as a standalone project. We can look into any sort of interest or community engagement in terms of, for example, the water front advisory projects that we're working on. It could also be incorporated into the Mural Fest program. So there's a few different ways and a few different mediums in which we can kind of explore that. Yeah, so that's definitely something that we can bring to the Public Art Committee's attention going forward, yeah.
Yeah, we just encourage that, and at some point when the snow is gone, if it ever is, I'll probably bring a motion to that effect. But it would be great if it came from the art community up rather than me down, who knows nothing about art except what I learn here. So thank you for all you do, you and your team.
No, and we appreciate it. We always encourage any sort of counselors, any sort of interest in any projects, whether they exist yet or you want to bring them to our attention, and we can kind of give our support and expertise at any stages going forward. So I'm happy to hear any of your ideas.
Thank you, Councilor Scott. Councilor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I just, first of all, thank you for the work that you and your team do as well, Jana. Your committee does some pretty great stuff. Quite frankly, I don't think you're asking for enough money. Use your dreams, build big. $20,000 for acquisitions is peanuts. And when I think about the city of Edmonton spending, over $500,000, I think it was $600,000 or something like that, to assemble a mound of ball bearings on the side of the road, which is not the most iconic thing that I've ever seen, but some people like it. I think Councillor Scott is right with coming into the community. There's opportunity to do something like that. But I guess more of a question, and I know this may even be more for Director Owens. Did we ever incorporate public art into development permits? Because at one point we contemplating having some incentives for new developers coming into the community or a new development happening to incorporate public art into their, whether we were going to give them a tax incentive or development incentives to do that, just to help beautify the region with these new buildings going up.
Through the chair to Councillor Allen, that would be, we haven't got anything in our municipal policies or bylaws at this point written. The public art plan does suggest as a municipality, we take a look at that as some of the private sites kind of opportunities in that program area of looking at what can we do and how can we build in or encourage private sites, whether it's through tax incentives, or if you build a, we mandate it, but that is something that we have not tackled yet as a municipality of looking at that. I know that the Downtown Incentive Revitalization Program has its own little mural grant system, and that has done a lot to enhance outdoors and murals and public art in our public realm. But there's opportunity to do more.
Well, maybe for planning and development, Councillor Scott came up with a notice of motion to look at having a checklist. Maybe that's one of the checks we could add to it, is having public art in there. Because I think it just adds value to every new development that's coming forward. And again, the work that you guys do, I don't think we have enough public art out there. And I would support bringing forward a lot more, both visual and any kind of something that adds to our identity as a community. And it actually identifies who we are as a culture. So again, I appreciate the work you're doing. I have no problem in supporting this plan, but I'd like to see more in it.
Understood. Thank you, Councillor Allen. We'll take that into consideration, but I appreciate your support.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. Councillor Cardinal?
I was checking out Stu's design. He's got a big plan in place here. he's doodling. But I got an idea that's not an idea. It's actually something that I've discussed with. Oh, sorry. Can you guys reach out to Suncor or Syncrude and see if there's I've had a conversation with them, the possibility of maybe moving the two buffaloes that they got. Well, they got about 6 there. Move the 2 buffaloes into Fort McMurray coming in, and then have Don's big Fort McMurray white sign coming there, and then the 2 buffaloes there. That's a big testament of a place where we mean business. That'd be a big project, and I'd be willing to help support it if I can in some way. And I think that's a really big move for us if we can have those 2 buffaloes coming into Wood Buffalo, and then have the big Fort McMurray white sign like Hollywood there. That mean business coming into Fort Mac. Thanks.
Perfect. We can look into that. We can look into a sister site. We can look into a sister fabrication. We can look into all sort of feasibility studies on what kind of entrance art that you guys would be interested in coming into the city and what that could look like. Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Councillor Cardinal.
Thanks, Mayor. I think it would be a big tourism attraction and place where you can photo op as well. So.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Do we have any delegates this item?
There's no registered delegates for this item. Thank you.
Thanks. Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the Public Art Wood Buffalo 2026 work plan as outlined on attachment 1 be accepted as information, and that $816,500 be drawn from the Public Art Reserve Fund to support the 2026 Public Art Work Plan.
Thanks, Councillor Weigel, and thanks, Councillor Boussier, for the second. Any debate, discussion, or comments? Councillor Vardy?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Art is very important. So there's a couple of people that I want to take a moment and thank. The Public Art Committee, thank you for all of your work. Administration, thank you. Thank you to our local artists. We have one here, Dawn. Thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you to our arts champions, the Fort McMurray Airport, Arts Council, Keanu College, and the RRC. And thank you for planning and development, who implemented having murals as a part of our DRIP program that showed that public art is actually an investment and a worthy investment. And I end with that, as a council, we should be investing in our arts recreation in the same way that we invest in our sports recreation. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Vardy. Councillor Cardinal?
I wanted to say thank you to the public art and be supporting the motion. But the importance of involving the rural communities and, spearheading, reaching out to them and getting to the. There's a few of them, and I know them. I know quite a few of them, and I really appreciate the Public Art Committee for helping enhance the quality of life in Fort McMurray and this whole entire region. It's very important that we have strong leaders in community service and community members that are embedded in seeing Fort McMurray flourish and grow and be a great place to live. So appreciate all the hard work and keep at it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Now I'll call for a vote. And that's carried unanimously. Thanks, everyone. Next up, we have the report on capital projects cost estimation. I'd like to invite Project Delivery and Facility Services to introduce the report. Director White.
Just waiting for, there we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Elliot White. I'm here tonight to present on capital project cost estimation. A cost estimate is a prediction of the total cost of labor, material, and equipment for a project. It relies on known information and reliable historic data. We develop cost estimates for all of our capital projects at multiple stages throughout the project. These cost estimates can be developed by in-house cost estimators or by consultants. Each estimate class represents a different project definition and design status, which affects the range of accuracy. As the project definition and design are refined, the cost estimate becomes more accurate. Early stage cost estimates do not reflect the actual cost of a project at completion. As the scope is developed and the project details are refined, the cost estimate is updated and accuracy is improved. As the project advances, the scope and design are refined, allowing the most recent cost estimate to be more accurate and to replace earlier estimates. So on the screen here, what you'll see is a cost estimation matrix. So this matrix is used to help clarify the expected accuracy of cost estimates based on its project definition, design status, and other additional associated complexities. The estimate class begins with an order of magnitude and then progresses from Class D all the way to Class A. The project definition, so this is the second column, that's the percentage of the project definition. So for an order of magnitude, your definition of your project scope is between 0 and 2%. As we move through each class, it increases as we move forward. So at Class A, we're nearing the end of the design process, 70 to 100%. That's when we would be able to refine our estimate closer to a Class A. The design status indicates the level of design completed. This is more familiar to some folks. So as we go through the design, we start at an order of magnitude. Typically, we do not have a design. Class D, that's where you start with your conceptual designs. And as you move through the finer engineering design through 30, 60, 90, our ability to increase our class and accuracy increases. The next two columns is your accuracy range. This is your range in which your cost estimate falls. So when we provide council and the public with a cost estimate, there's a chance and a probability that the final end of the sorry, let me try that again. At the end of the project, the project cost could be anywhere from 50% higher to 30% less on an order of magnitude project cost estimate. If we're looking at a Class A, at the end of the project, we could see a cost increase of 10% or a cost decrease of 5%. So the other thing I'd like to note is the last sentence there, and it has to do with the uniqueness and complexity of projects. Depending on the nature of work, project location, availability of market data, and the overall uniqueness of the project, we may have to add additional percentage points to the accuracy range. One of the examples of this recently was the Arts Inc. That project is quite unique in nature. We tend not to build those facilities often. So when we prepared that cost estimate, we had to add additional percentage points to the cost estimate. So estimates are more reliable for common projects and unique projects with changing and undefined scopes. Market conditions are a major influence, and price changes are hard to predict. Other factors such as tariffs can drastically change costs. One other thing I'd like to point out is sometimes even depending on how busy Edmonton and Calgary and other major cities are, will impact the cost of doing business here with construction. So in summary, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build framework within the municipality and provide common language for us to communicate cost estimates when we come to you with project requests and business cases. We want to offer you an opportunity to understand where we're getting these numbers from. When we come to you with a project that has a very low project definition, we have to understand that those cost estimates do have a range in its accuracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. Do we have any questions? Councillor Boussier.
Through the chair to the presenter, thank you, Elliot. Not a question. I just wanted to thank you for sharing this. You asked if we wanted you to present this when we were doing a little budget school, and I said yes. I may be the only moron who didn't understand what was happening, but I'm going to go with there's at least 10 people in the community who also sat in judgment going, "What? These people can't project the cost of a project. They're always over." And so I got very good education from you in terms of the order of magnitude, and so I thought it was important to share. So I appreciate you sharing the information. You also, which I assume you'll get into at budget, but the efforts that you have undertaken to improve the way your department works. So I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for sharing this and making this information available to the public.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Wana. Councillor Allen, question?
Also a comment, and I echo what Councillor Boussier just said. I got a couple of years in this chair, and I never saw anything like this in the past, and this is particularly timely with the budget process coming up next week. So thank you for assembling that. If I could, if I was to add anything, I would suggest maybe if there was some way of also capturing scope changes along the way in the project process. And the reason I say that, I think back to when we first did the McDonald Island redevelopment, and it started off as a $47 million project. And then suddenly well, it wasn't sudden at all. It was suddenly where it's at $220 million. And there was never any real definition about what the scope changes were along the way. Mm-hmm. They happened in public meetings, they were debated, and the money was approved, but there was no real tracking of that to demonstrate to the public. I still hear all the time from people saying, well, what happened to that $50 million project you were going to do that cost $220? So if we had a way of identifying that in the whole project scope along the way, when we change the scope, it's going to change the price, and it's very clear as to where that came from. But to me, understanding this and the where a capital project is when we're debating it. This is extremely helpful. So thank you for compiling this cost estimation matrix. Yeah.
Thank you. Does council have any other questions? I'm not seeing any. Thanks, Elliot. Do we have any delegates to this item?
There are no delegates, thank you.
Thanks. Can someone make this motion? Councillor Cardinal?
Go ahead.
Councillor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the presentation on capital projects cost estimation be accepted as information.
Thanks, Councillor Weigel. And thanks, Councillor Allen, for the second. Does council have any debate, discussion, or comments at this time? Not seeing any. I'll call for a vote. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have a report on the CEO Performance Evaluation Council Policy, GOV-040. I'd like to invite the Chief of Staff Office to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and good evening once again, Council. For the record, my name is Matthew Harrison, and I'm the Chief of Staff, and I'm here to speak to you about the Chief Administrative Officer Performance Evaluation Council Policy, GOV-040. As is noted in the Council report, the proposed policy and procedure establish a consistent and structured framework for Council to conduct a performance evaluation of the CAO. Now, you may ask, why do we need this? And Council may have noticed that over the last few meetings, administration has been bringing forward some policies and procedures to help close the governance gap. And there is a gap here. Interestingly, we don't actually have a CAO performance evaluation policy. And in fact, there's an outstanding resolution from the last Council that was passed on May 20th, 2025, to establish such a policy. So the policy here before you affirms Council's role as a CAO's sole employer and ensures that performance reviews are carried out in accordance with legislative requirements. Now, namely, those would be the requirements outlined in the MGA, Section 205.1, that speaks to the annual written performance, and then Sections 18 and 19 of the CAO bylaw, which speaks to an annual evaluation as well as a semi-annual assessment to informally advise the CAO of their progress. I'd like to also note that this policy was developed by reviewing CAO evaluation materials and toolkits offered by municipal associations, Alberta Municipalities, as well as Rural Municipalities of Alberta, and the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators. As well, you'll note that there are some guidelines and a template for an evaluation, but as per Section 7 of the procedure, Council may choose to use a different method or form of evaluating the CAO. Certainly there's no obligation to use a template, it's just there to help Council get started, so to speak, and it's certainly up to Council to decide what best suits your needs. In conclusion, this policy enhances accountability, strengthens governance, and supports an effective working relationship between Council and the CAO. And I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. Just a quick question before we go on. As it's mandatory to do an evaluation, is it mandatory for all council to participate in the evaluation?
That's really up to Council as to how you would do it. I mean, ideally, you would certainly give the opportunity to all of Council to weigh in, but that, again, is up to how Council would like to carry out that evaluation. And to your point, Mayor, and through the chair, it is mandatory, it is required under the MGA that there is a written formal annual evaluation.
Perfect, thank you. And questions from council? Councilor Cardinal?
On fire, baby. Number 7, the pre-performance review in the meeting. I'm curious as to self-evaluation, using the same evaluation package. Am I on the right one here?
1 second here.
Yeah, I'm on the right one, okay.
Through the chair, Councilor Cardinal, you're talking about the template?
Yeah, just curious about, like, you know, the CAO will complete a self-evaluation. What does, using the same template?
Well, the self-evaluation would be for them to weigh in on how they feel they perform. So if you look at this template, there's talk of how the CEO would work with council to establish goals. And so then the self-reflection part of the CEO would reflect on that, and they could weigh in on how they feel that they've performed and carried out their duties throughout the year. It wouldn't necessarily be going through that template. The template's more for council to utilize.
Okay, thanks. I just kind of wanted a little understanding about that. I didn't really understand that, so.
Sure,
thank you.
absolutely.
Thanks, Councilor Cardinal. Councilor Bussier?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Through the chair to Matthew. Thank you to everybody for the work on this. I was shocked that we didn't have this, and I'm gonna go with it might be a factor in the turnover of CAOs when you're not evaluating your one employee. So thank you for the work on this. I think that's gonna be super important. I'm just wondering why compensation or a scale of compensation is not listed in this.
Yeah, through the chair to Councilor Luana Bussier. That's a very good question. In fact, we talked quite a bit about that administratively. In some of the examples that we had gone through that were offered through Alberta municipalities, some of the templates, there was sections included on compensation. What we determined in the end is that compensation would likely be set as part of the contract with the CAO, and there'd be some kind of compensation linked to performance in the contract of the CAO versus in this council policy and procedure. So we're making some assumptions there, but it's also something that could also still be considered in terms of if council would want to consider that for the CO as part of evaluation. It's just not captured in the policy.
Yeah, I guess if you look at historically, there hasn't even been an evaluation. I would prefer to see it in policy that there is a band, a compensation band that the CAO can move up based on annual performance, or there's an approved template that we give for the CAO contract that speaks to it, but to just hope someone remembers to put it in either one of them, I'm uncomfortable with. Personally, I think it should be in the council procedure, like this document, that there is a pay scale and that it ties in with the annual review. That's me personally. I don't know. I'm not sure if we're voting. I don't know what we're doing. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can, do I make an amendment? I'm sorry, I'm just clueless, but
no,
are we
fine.
Amending this? Would I make a recommendation to amend this?
So
or?
through the chair to Councilor Luana Bussier, probably the easiest thing would be to send it back to administration and then we could add it. I will just caveat and preface that the information that we'd come across in terms of the toolkit and some of the best practices, there wasn't anything necessarily specific to the compensation piece. Like it wasn't like shall receive, this percentage for compensation or this kind of increase. It was more like the evaluation could lead to compensation of some form. So it wasn't prescriptive necessarily. And that was also part of the reason why we thought it may be best that that would be something that could be handled in the contract itself. But if it's council's will that we look more closely at that, we could send it back and see about modifying that.
Yeah, and my will isn't necessarily council's will. I just would like it, I'd be more comfortable if it was specified somewhere. I don't mean a percent, but just not ignore it. Like that it be listed either in the contract or in this policy. Whatever, so I don't,
I think we can add it right in the contract, Lana. I think that's a good idea. I think that's something that was asked by different CEOs before, and I think we can put something collectively into the contract as we're going to be doing one up in the near future.
so then can we make reference to that contract in this document so future councils don't just create some, I don't want it lost.
Yes, we can amend it to add an item in there. Yeah, we can take once I go to Councillor Scott's, before we go to voting for the motion, we could take a quick recess and have Jade do up something to add to this.
And just to that point, through the chair, to the chair and to Councillor Bussier, I may actually have an older version of the policy where I can just pull that language and provide it to the CLO if there's a recess.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Councillor Lana. Councillor Scott?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest, and I've certainly seen it, you can reference that, the policy would be subject to any contract, but if there is not a contract, then any wage adjustment would be subject to the discretion of council based on performance. A phrase as loose as that, something like that, is very commonly used elsewhere.
Thanks, Councillor Scott. Do you have any other questions of council? I'm not seeing any, so let's take a 5-minute recess to get up some language, and we can come back for the motion. So welcome back, everyone. Can I have some make the original motion? Councillor Weigel?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the Chief Administration Officer CAO Performance Evaluation Council Policy Gov-040 as outlined in Attachment 1 and the CEO Performance Evaluation Council Procedure GOV-040.1 as outlined in Attachment 2 as approved.
Thanks, Councillor Weigel. Thanks for the second, Councillor Van Castian. Councillor Boussier, do you have an amendment to that?
No, just kidding. That the CAO Performance Evaluation Council Procedure Gov-040.1 be amended by adding the following as new section 15 under the new header compensation. 15, council may consider adjusting the CAO compensation during the evaluation process.
Thanks, Councillor Boussier, and thanks for the second, Councillor Van Castian. Councillor Boussier, do you want to speak to that amendment?
Just previous to what I had said earlier, I don't want this lost in either the CAO offer letter or the evaluation procedure. So I just wanted to make sure it was added in.
Thanks, Councillor Boussier. Councillor Scott?
Sorry, my only suggestion is add in the words based on performance. Not that it would be based on anything else, but I think it just articulates why it might be adjusted, although, as noted, when everyone was out of the room, it doesn't say adjusted up or down, it just says adjusted, so that's interesting, but presumably it would be based on performance, so I just suggest the insertion of those three words as a friendly amendment, I guess.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, we could add that. Councillor Boussier?
Amended to be 15, council may consider adjusting the CAO compensation during the evaluation process based on performance.
Thank you. There's no other comments or debate points. We will call for a vote. That's carried unanimously, and now we'll go back to the original motion to vote on that. So I'll call for a vote on the original motion. Yep, I can read it, Councillor Cardinal. That Chief Administrative Officer, CEO, Performance Evaluation, Council Policy GOV-040, as outlined in Attachment 1, and the CEO Performance Evaluation Council Procedure GOV-040.1, as outlined in Attachment 2, be approved. We're waiting for a few councillors to vote on that original motion. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. I think you can remain seated, Matthew. Next, we have the report on CAO Recruitment Council Policy, GOV-050. I'd like to invite Matthew Harrison, Chief of Staff, to remain seated and introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Hi again. It's me, Matthew Harrison, your Chief of Staff. And in this next edition of the Governance Gap Game Show, we're going to be speaking about the Chief Administrative Officer Recruitment Council Policy, GOV 050. As noted in the council report, the proposed policy simply states that when the position is vacant, council will establish a transparent and fair process for recruiting and hiring a CEO by resolution. Like other policies brought to you recently, this is a very straightforward policy that's intended to close a governance gap where there's no existing policy. In its most basic form, it strengthens the integrity of the hiring process and ensures the appointment of the CEO is consistent with legislative requirements. And that concludes my presentation. I'm here for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. And council have any questions? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Matthew, is this required under the MGA?
I would say it's not necessarily required, but it is a good governance. It's been identified as a gap in our governance, and so though it seems very basic and almost foolish, or other adjectives that could be used, it is a good governance gap to close by establishing something like this.
I was thinking along the lines of other adjectives, but it was more that, I mean, it's common sense. We have a vacancy, we should use a fair and transparent process for hiring a replacement. I just...
Through the chair to Councillor Allen, I think one key piece is the resolution piece, the highlight that council will pass a resolution
That's
to
part
carry
of the
this
MGA.
out. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm just struggling with the need to develop yet another policy for it, if it's a governance gap or if it's just creating another document. Yeah. I mean, I'll support it because it's just obvious.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. Councillor Cardinal.
Thanks, Matthew, for the presentation. Through the chair to Matthew again. By resolution, does that mean that the CAO will not be hired from council if there's not a resolution passed?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, the idea is that council would come to an agreement as to how to approach the recruitment of the CAO, and then they would carry it out. They would share this through a resolution publicly. I think a good example of this goes back to the December 9th meeting where on the consent agenda there was a council report and a resolution that council will form a recruitment committee to undertake a search for a CEO and then go through the process and then make a recommendation and so on and so forth.
So yeah.
Yes. Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, it is as basic and straightforward as it seems, yes.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Are there any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any. Is there any delegates to this item?
There are no registered delegates. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have someone make this motion? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Cardinal. You have a question?
No. Are we debating?
No, we will debate after the motion, so I'll let you know. Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Weigel?
I move that the CAO recruitment policy, Government-050 as outlined in attachment 1 be approved.
Thanks, Councillor Weigel, and thanks for a second, Councillor Van Castian. Now, Councillor Cardinal, this is debate, comments of council. Go ahead, Councillor Cardinal.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate the fact that I'm glad that the policy is moving forward and we have a guiding document to work amongst ourselves and hopefully come to a consensus and formal resolution and hiring a good qualified CAO and finishing the vacancy and just the legislative requirements to move forward with the policy. So appreciate the work that's being done by the staff and us as council, I guess, for having these given the direction. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. And I agree, this is something we've gone through a few times, so I think this council actually has it down pretty pat on the procedure for hiring a CEO. So I will be supporting it. So if there's no other comments, debate points, I'll call for a vote. And that's carried with 10 in favor. Thanks, everyone. That concludes this evening's meeting. Marcy Cho, Kinwis Compton, and have a good night.